Miriam hears it before she sees it, a whisper moving through tents like wind through dry grass. Moses, his wife. The words are small, but they scrape her pride raw. She stands outside her tent, warm sand under her feet, the evening air smelling of smoke and lentils. People don't look at her the same way today. They look past her, toward Moses' tent, like the story is happening there now. She forces a calm face. She is not just anyone. She led songs by the sea. She held the people together when fear was loud. And yet lately, every decision has Moses' shadow on it. Every command, every silence. Aaron says, "Let it go." But his voice sounds tired, like he also feels it. Miriam walks with Aaron, slow and steady, where others can see. "Does the Lord speak only through Moses?" she says, like it's a simple question, like it's for the good of everyone. Aaron hesitates, then nods. That nod is the spark. The rumor grows teeth. The camp feels it. People choose sides without saying they choose sides. Miriam watches Moses from a distance. He doesn't defend himself. He doesn't even look up. That quiet makes her angrier. Then the air changes, cold, heavy. A silence drops over the camp as if someone covered the sun. Miriam's mouth goes dry. A voice calls from the cloud, "Come out, you three." And Miriam realizes the whisper has reached God. Miriam steps forward with Aaron, and Moses follows, slow, like he's walking into a storm he already knows. The camp behind them holds its breath. Cooking fires crackle, then seem too loud. A child stops laughing. Even the goats go quiet. The cloud that usually hovers over the meeting place thickens, dark at the edges, bright in the center, like a doorway. Miriam's throat tightens. She tells herself she's right. Leaders must be questioned. Moses isn't the only voice. The thought feels brave until it feels childish. They reach the entrance. Sand shifts under their sandals. The air turns cool, smelling like rain that never falls. Moses stands slightly apart, head lowered. Miriam hates that posture, so humble it feels like a weapon. A voice breaks the silence, not loud, just absolute. "Hear my words." Miriam's knees want to bend, but she keeps them straight. She waits for God to agree with her, to correct Moses, to level the ground. Instead, the voice says it plainly. Others may dream, others may see visions, but Moses is different, trusted, spoken to face. The words land like stones, heavy and final. Miriam glances at Aaron. His eyes are wide. He is trembling, not with anger, with fear. Then the voice turns sharp as flint. "Why were you not afraid to speak against my servant?" Miriam's mouth opens, but no sound comes out. In her mind, she reaches for the old songs, the old honor, the sea splitting, the tambourines, anything to remind herself who she is. The cloud pulls back, and for one heartbeat, Miriam thinks, maybe it's over. Then she feels it, something wrong on her skin, like cold dust clinging where it shouldn't. She looks down. Her hands don't look like her hands. Aaron gasps beside her. Moses finally lifts his head, and Miriam knows the price has started. Aaron stares at Miriam like he doesn't recognize her. His lips move, but the words get stuck. The desert air feels thinner now, like the camp itself is afraid to breathe. Miriam tries to hide her hands inside her shawl. The fabric scratches. She can feel eyes turning, first to Moses, then to her, like everyone is waiting to see who will speak. She wants to speak. She wants to argue, but her voice feels small under that cloud. Aaron suddenly steps toward Moses, too fast, sandals scraping sand. His shoulders fold in on themselves. The man who wore authority like a cloak now looks like someone begging at a closed door. "Please," Aaron says, voice breaking, "my lord, don't hold this against us. We acted foolishly. We sinned." Miriam's chest tightens. Us. He says us. But the camp will remember her name first. She feels heat behind her eyes, a mix of anger and shame. She wants to tell Aaron not to grovel. She also wants him to grovel harder because she's scared. Moses doesn't rush to defend himself. He doesn't say, "I told you so." He looks at Miriam, then away, like the sight hurts him. That hurts her more. Around them, the quiet spreads. People are close enough now to see her face, but far enough to pretend they're not staring. A few step back instinctively, as if distance could keep trouble from touching them. Miriam swallows. Her reputation, built across years, feels like it's crumbling in one morning. And the worst part? She can't blame anyone else. Aaron's voice drops lower. "Don't let her be like one born dead," he says, desperate, using words that sound like old prayers and old fear. Miriam flinches. She grips her shawl tighter, trying to hold herself together. Moses turns his face upward toward the cloud that is no longer speaking, and Miriam realizes something terrifying. Moses will choose what happens next. Moses closes his eyes like he's shutting a door on everything else, on the staring faces, on the whisper that started it, on the shame hanging off Miriam's shoulders. The camp waits for a speech, a verdict, a lesson. They get none of that. Moses lifts his hands, palms open, like a man with nothing to prove. His voice is raw and short. "Oh God, please heal her." Just 7 words, no defense, no reminder that she hurt him, no talk of leadership, only a request. Miriam feels the sting of it, not because it's harsh, because it isn't, because he could have let her fall and called it justice. Instead, he asks for mercy, and that mercy makes her feel exposed. The cloud doesn't soften. The answer comes like a boundary line drawn in sand. Miriam must be put outside the camp, not forever, not destroyed, but separated like someone who touched what was unclean and must wait. 7 days. 7 days of silence where songs used to be. Miriam's stomach drops. She looks past Moses at the tents stretching across the plain. That's her world, her people, her place. And now the edge of the camp feels like a cliff. Aaron reaches toward her, then stops, afraid even his touch will make things worse. Moses opens his eyes. He doesn't look triumphant. He looks tired. Then a guard steps forward, cautious, not cruel, just obeying. Miriam backs up once, then again, as if her feet can bargain for time. Behind her, the camp begins to shift. People make space. A path appears, not for honor, for exile. And Miriam understands the cruelest part. The whole nation will see her walk out. Miriam steps onto the path they've opened for her. It isn't wide, but it feels endless. On both sides, people stand with their arms crossed or hands over mouths, pretending to be busy with ropes, pots, children, anything but her face. She keeps her chin up. She tries. But every step pulls at her like a weight. A woman she once laughed with turns away. A teenage boy she once corrected watches, then quickly looks down. Miriam hears the whispers restart, softer now, sharper. Not brave questions anymore, safe judgments. Her shawl slips a little. She pulls it tighter, hiding her hands, hiding the sign everyone fears. The fabric smells like dust and old smoke. Her skin feels wrong beneath it, like it doesn't belong to her. At the edge of the camp, the world changes. The sounds fade, less clatter, less talk, just wind and distant bleating. The line of tents ends, and beyond it is open ground, scattered stones, and the harsh, honest sun. A guard stops a few paces away, careful to keep distance. He doesn't insult her. That might almost be easier. He only points. "Here," he says. "Here. Outside." Miriam turns back. From this angle, the camp looks like a small city of cloth and smoke. It looks safe. It looks like a place for other people. She sees Moses near the tent, still standing with Aaron. She expects him to look away. He doesn't. He watches, steady and quiet, as if he's making sure she doesn't fall. That kindness stings again like salt on pride. Miriam sits on a flat stone and wraps her shawl around herself. The sun climbs. The heat comes in waves. The day stretches. And then she hears something she didn't expect. No marching, no movement, no call to break camp. The whole nation stays. They are waiting for her. And Miriam realizes her private jealousy has become everyone's delay. The first night outside the camp is the hardest because it's so ordinary. The stars come out like they always do. The wind cools the sand. Somewhere inside the tents, someone laughs, then stops, like they remember she's out here. Miriam sits with her knees drawn in, shawl tight around her shoulders. The ground is rough. Tiny stones press into her palms. She keeps her hands hidden anyway, not because she's afraid to see them, because she's afraid of what seeing them will admit. She listens. Inside the camp, life moves, but only barely. No drums, no shouted orders to pack, no excitement. Just a long pause stretched across thousands of people. The nation is stuck because of her, and every quiet moment feels like a finger pointed at her back. She tries to sleep. Her mind won't let her. She remembers the sea, the song, the way the women followed her rhythm and trusted her voice. She remembers standing near baby Moses once, watching over the basket, heart pounding, daring the river to take him. She was brave then. She was useful. Now she's a warning. Footsteps crunch softly in the sand. Miriam stiffens. For a moment she expects a crowd, or angry men, or someone coming to throw stones. Then she realizes the steps are careful, alone. A young girl stands a few paces away holding a small clay cup. She doesn't come closer. Her eyes are wide, not cruel. "I brought water," the girl whispers. Miriam's throat tightens. "You shouldn't," she says, but her voice cracks on the last word. The girl sets the cup down and backs away quickly, like she's done something dangerous. Then she runs. Miriam stares at the cup. The water inside reflects the stars, trembling, a gift with rules, kindness with distance. She drinks slowly. The water is warm, but it's life. And Miriam realizes something she hates. Even outside the camp, she still has influence. Not the kind she wanted, but the kind she earned. She looks toward the line of tents, a dark band against the moonlit sand. 7 days to sit with her own words. Morning comes hard out here. No tent shade, no familiar voices calling her name. Just sun, sand, and the sound of the camp waking without moving. Miriam watches from her stone like she's watching a world that decided it can live without her. But it can't. Not yet. By the 3rd day, she hears it clearly, new whispers, not the old ones. The camp is bored, afraid, and stuck. So it starts talking. It starts shaping the moment into a tale it can carry. Miriam sees 2 women near the edge of the camp, pretending to shake out rugs while their mouths move fast. She can't hear every word, but she catches pieces when the wind turns. She challenged him. God answered. Did you see her skin? Maybe she always wanted his place. That last line hits her like a slap. She stands too quick, dizzy from heat and lack of sleep. That's not, she starts, but the words die in open air. Who is she arguing with? The wind? The rumor she helped create? She paces a small circle, sand crunching under her sandals. The sun bakes the back of her neck. Her shawl feels heavier every hour, like it's soaked with shame. A figure appears at the boundary again, this time an older man. He holds a bundle, flatbread and dried dates. He sets it down and steps back. He doesn't look at her directly. "Eat," he says, voice tight. Not kindness, obligation, fear. Like feeding her is part of keeping the camp safe. Miriam's jaw clenches. She wants to shout, "I'm still Miriam." Sister of Moses, prophetess, leader, not a hazard to toss food at. But when she looks down, she sees her own hands as she reaches. The pale, ashy patches are still there, still undeniable. She pulls back like she's been burned. For the first time, Miriam whispers a question into the empty space. Is this who I am now? No answer comes. Only the distant sound of children practicing a song without her. And Miriam understands the cruelest truth of leadership. People will keep singing, even when you're not there. Late afternoon, when the heat finally loosens its grip, Miriam hears footsteps again. Slower, heavier. Not a child, not a guard. Someone who knows her pace. Aaron stops at the boundary line like it's a wall. He looks older than he did a week ago. His cream robe hangs a little looser, his brown sash twisted like he tied it in a hurry. He keeps his hands visible, open, as if even a brother must prove he means no harm. Miriam, he says, just her name. No title, no argument. It lands soft and painful. She doesn't answer at first. She stares past him at the camp, where people move around in half speed, waiting for permission to live again. She wants to punish him for kneeling to Moses. She wants to punish Moses for being humble. She wants to punish herself for starting any of it. Aaron swallows. They're talking, he admits. The longer we stay, the worse it gets. Miriam lets out a dry laugh that has no joy in it. So now you care about whispers. Aaron flinches like the word struck him. Then he nods. Slow. Yes, because I helped make them. He steps a half step closer, then stops again, honoring the distance. His eyes shine, not with anger, with regret. When you spoke, I wanted to feel important too. I wanted to be more than a mouthpiece. I nodded because it felt good. Miriam's throat tightens. She hates how honest that sounds. She hates that it sounds like her. Aaron's voice drops. Moses didn't tell anyone what you said. He didn't defend himself. He just prayed. Miriam looks down at her covered hands. The shawl edge trembles. And God still did this? Aaron breathes out. God drew a line, so we would stop crossing lines with our mouths. The wind shifts, carrying a faint smell of camp bread. Normal life, close but unreachable. Miriam finally meets Aaron's eyes. If I come back, she whispers, will they look at me the same? Aaron doesn't lie. He shakes his head. No. That truth hurts more than the sun. Aaron adds, barely audible, but they might learn to fear gossip the way they fear fire. Miriam feels the weight of that. A leader can fall and still teach. A fall can still protect the people, if she lets it. She turns toward the camp, and for the first time in days, she wants to step forward. But the seventh day isn't here yet. The sky is deep blue when Miriam hears the steps. Quiet, steady, unhurried. Not the cautious shuffle of a guard. Not the heavy pause of Aaron. Moses stops where the camp ends, where rules become sand. He doesn't cross. He just stands, hands at his sides, like a man refusing to make this about power again. Miriam, he says. Her name and his voice is different from Aaron's. Not soft, not sharp, just tired. She pulls her shawl tighter. Did you come to check if I learned my lesson? She asks, trying to keep the sting in her words. It's easier to sound proud than scared. Moses looks out at the stars for a long moment. Then he says, I came because the camp is quiet in a way it shouldn't be. Miriam lets out a breath. It's quiet because I'm out here. Yes, Moses answers. No blame, just fact. The wind moves through the scrub grass. Somewhere far off, a tent peg creaks. The silence feels like a third person listening. Miriam forces herself to look at him. You didn't defend yourself. Moses' eyes flicker toward her hands, then away again, respectful. Defending myself would have fed it, he says, and I didn't want to feed it. That simple line makes Miriam's face burn. She remembers how she fed the whisper, how she tasted the attention and wanted more. She swallows. You knew it would turn into this. Moses nods once. Words don't stay small. For a moment, Miriam wants to cry. She won't. She bites the inside of her cheek and tastes salt. You're the leader, she says, voice low, and you never asked if I wanted that weight too. Moses looks at her then, really looks. I didn't know you were carrying it alone, he says. That's the first thing he says that feels like a wound on him, not her. Miriam's shoulders sag. I wanted to be heard, she admits, barely a whisper, and I wanted you to feel replaceable. The confession hangs there, ugly and honest. Moses doesn't step back. He doesn't step forward. He just nods, like he's heard worse things in the wilderness. The seventh day is tomorrow, he says. When you return, people will stare. Let them stare. Miriam's voice shakes. And after that? Moses' gaze goes past her, toward the dark hills. After that, he says, we keep walking, and the wilderness will test all of us again. He turns to leave. Then he adds one last sentence without looking back. Next time you feel the whisper, bring it to me before it becomes a fire. Miriam stands alone under the stars, hearing that word, fire, and realizing she already knows what it can do. Morning arrives like a verdict, the seventh day. The air is cool for a moment. Then the sun begins its slow climb, as if even time is watching. Miriam stands before the boundary line, shawl tight, heart louder than any trumpet. The pale, ashy marks haven't vanished like magic in a blink, but they are fading, enough that she can breathe without panic, enough that the guards nod, careful and serious. A priest checks from a distance, not touching, not staring too long. He gives a short signal. She's allowed back. Miriam steps forward. It's strange how one step can feel heavier than years. Sand shifts under her sandals, and suddenly she is inside again, inside the noise, inside the smells of bread and sweat and smoke, inside the tight web of eyes. People don't cheer, they don't sing, they just watch. A mother pulls her child closer, an old man whispers a prayer, a few faces soften with relief, others harden, like they're filing her away as a lesson. Miriam keeps walking anyway, chin up, not because she's proud, because if she looks down, she might never look up again. Aaron appears first, standing where everyone can see. He doesn't hug her, he doesn't rush. He simply bows his head, a public sign. She is back among us. Then Moses approaches. Still no speech, still no performance. He only says, "Are you able to walk?" Miriam nods. Her voice comes out rough. Yes. For a heartbeat, she thinks he will say more. He doesn't. He turns toward the camp. That is his way of saying, we go on. And then it happens. Small, but undeniable. People start folding tents. Ropes tighten. Stakes lift. A distant horn sounds, not loud, but enough. The nation begins to move again. Miriam watches it like she's watching a river start flowing after a dam breaks. She feels relief and something else, fear, because she knows they will remember this delay. They will tell their children about the day the camp stopped because Miriam spoke against Moses. And as the first lines of people start walking, Miriam realizes the wilderness didn't end her story. It only marked her. The march begins, and Miriam walks with the people like a familiar song sung in a new key. The desert road stretches ahead, stone, dust, heat, waiting. Behind her, the place of exile disappears fast, as if the sand is eager to swallow the memory, but the memory doesn't vanish. Miriam feels it in the space around her. People don't crowd close like they used to. Conversations lower when she passes. A woman who once asked Miriam for advice now pretends to fix her headscarf. Two men glance at Miriam's hands, then quickly look away. She keeps her arms folded, shawl covering the last faint marks. Not to hide the skin. She can't hide what happened. She's hiding the feeling of being inspected. Aaron walks a few steps behind, as if he's guarding her from stares, or maybe guarding the camp from her. Miriam can't tell which thought hurts more. They stop at midday, tents go up, fires crackle back to life. Life returns, but cautious, like a deer returning to a place where it once heard a lion. A group of younger women gather near a water jar. Miriam hears her name whispered, then the word prophetess, said like a question, not a title. One of them, bold enough to look her in the eyes, steps forward. She's maybe 17, hair braided tight, expression sharp with curiosity. "Is it true," the girl asks, "that God spoke because you challenged Moses?" Miriam's stomach twists. The question is innocent, but it carries danger. One answer could make Miriam look brave. Another could make her look cursed. The wrong answer could start the whole fire again. Miriam takes a slow breath. She tastes dust. "It's true," she says quietly, "that I spoke when I should have been afraid." The girl blinks, surprised. "Afraid of Moses?" Miriam shakes her head. "Afraid of what words become." That answer doesn't satisfy the curious ones. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't feel like a heroic story. But it's honest. And honesty is the only safe ground she has left. The girl steps back, thoughtful. The others murmur, disappointed, then drift away. Miriam watches them go. A part of her aches. She used to lead with confidence. Now she leads with restraint. Across the camp, Moses meets her eyes for a brief moment. No anger, no victory, just a silent warning. The wilderness is listening. Miriam turns away, and in her chest a new fear forms. What if her next test isn't jealousy? What if it's loneliness? That evening, the camp settles into a restless calm. Fires glow low. The smell of flatbread hangs in the air. Miriam sits near the edge of a circle of women, not in the center like before. Close enough to belong, far enough to be watched. A man's voice carries across the tents, loud with certainty. "We should choose new leaders," he says, like he's offering a solution instead of a rebellion. Miriam's spine tightens. The words hit a place that still aches. She doesn't even need to see him to know what comes next. People gathering, nodding, hungry for a different story. She stands and walks toward the sound, careful, steady, not rushing, not hiding. If she rushes, it looks like she agrees. If she hides, it looks like she's guilty. A small crowd forms near a cooking fire. The man talking is broad-shouldered, face half lit by orange flame. His friends stand close. He's not shouting yet. He's testing the air. "Why always Moses?" he says. "Aren't we all holy?" Miriam hears the familiar poison, "we all holy," words that sound humble but want a crown. Then someone says it, the sentence that makes her blood run cold. "Miriam proved it," a woman whispers. Even she questioned him. Miriam steps forward into the firelight. The crowd quiets, startled. The man's eyes widen, then sharpen, like he thinks he's found an ally. Miriam keeps her hands visible, shawl open enough to show she's not hiding anymore. "Don't use my failure as your banner," she says, voice firm but not loud. The man scoffs. "Failure? You spoke truth. God answered because Moses was threatened." A few people nod, hungry for that version, a heroic Miriam, a jealous Moses, a God-defending power. Miriam feels the old temptation. How easy it would be to accept the praise, to rewrite the story so she isn't ashamed. One sentence, and the crowd would carry her like a symbol. Instead, she shakes her head. "God answered because I crossed a line," she says, "and it nearly stopped all of us." The man's smile fades. "So, you're on his side." Miriam's heart pounds. The camp holds its breath again, waiting for her to choose a team. She looks at the faces around the fire, some angry, some hopeful, some just scared of the road ahead. "I'm on the side that keeps us from burning each other with words," she says. The man turns away, frustrated. The crowd breaks, disappointed, like a feast was canceled. Miriam watches them scatter into the dark. She did the right thing, but as she sits back down, she realizes something chilling. Stopping a rumor once doesn't kill it. It only teaches it to move quieter. The camp finally goes quiet, but Miriam's mind won't. She lies on her mat inside her tent, staring at the dark cloth ceiling. Every small sound feels like judgment. Sand brushing canvas, a distant cough, the soft creak of rope. She used to end nights with a song, a steady rhythm, something that made fear step back. Now her throat feels locked. Miriam turns onto her side and pulls her shawl close like a shield. She thinks about the firelight faces, the man trying to borrow her shame and turn it into a banner. She thinks about how close she came to letting him, not because she agreed, because a part of her still craves being needed. Outside, footsteps pass, 2 women talking low. Miriam catches a few words through the tent wall. She said the right thing, but can we trust her? Then the voices fade. Miriam closes her eyes hard. Forgiven doesn't mean trusted. She knew it. Hearing it still hurts. A shadow pauses outside her tent. Miriam sits up, heart jumping. She expects another whisperer, another question, another stare. But the voice is familiar, gentle, and older. It's one of the women who once followed Miriam with a tambourine. Her name is Elisheba. She doesn't come in. She stays outside, respectful. "I can't sleep," Elisheba admits, almost embarrassed. "My children keep asking why we stopped. I didn't know what to say." Miriam's fingers curl into her mat. This is the moment she used to handle easily. She'd give the right words, the inspiring line, the confident answer. Now she hesitates, afraid of turning pain into a story that makes her look important. "What did you tell them?" Miriam asks. Elisheba's voice trembles. "I told them, words can wound, and God heard." Miriam swallows. "That's enough," she says softly. "You don't need to add my name like a warning every time." Silence. Then Elisheba says, "But they will remember you anyway." Miriam looks at the dark tent wall, feeling the truth settle. Her life is now part of the camp's rules, a line drawn around the tongue. Elisheba speaks again, quieter. "When you led us by the sea, you didn't lead because you were perfect. You led because you were brave." Miriam's eyes sting. She hates that kindness can still reach her. "Go sleep," Miriam whispers. Elisheba's steps fade. Miriam lies back down, and for the first time in days she tries something new. Not a song, a prayer. "God, teach me how to lead without needing to win." The night stays dark, but the silence feels different, like someone is listening. The morning starts normal, too normal. The camp stirs. Men roll sleeping mats. Women knead dough. Children chase each other between tent ropes. The desert sun climbs like it always does, careless and bright. Miriam almost believes the worst has passed. Then a shout cracks the air near the water jars. "Thief!" Heads snap toward the sound. A young man pushes through the crowd clutching a small leather pouch. A girl runs after him, hair loose, face flushed with anger and fear. She points at him like her finger is an arrow. "He took my family's silver," she cries. "I saw him." People surge forward, not with fists, with voices, questions, accusations, the kind of chaos that spreads faster than any sickness. Miriam steps closer, and the crowd splits without meaning to. Her name still has gravity even now, even bruised. The young man's eyes dart around. He looks cornered. "I didn't steal," he insists, too fast. "She's lying." The girl shakes, furious. "He's been watching our tent for days." Someone mutters, "Maybe he learned it from Miriam, how to take what isn't yours." The words are quiet, but Miriam hears them. Her stomach drops. The rumor is still alive. It just wears a new mask. Miriam forces herself to focus on the two in front of her, a thief and an accuser, or maybe two frightened people about to be crushed by a crowd. She raises her hand, palm out. "Stop," she says, not loud. The command cuts through the noise like a rope pulled tight. The crowd hesitates. Miriam turns to the girl first. "Where was the pouch?" "In our tent," the girl snaps. "Under my mother's cloth. It's gone." Miriam looks at the young man. "Open your hand." He hesitates. The crowd leans in. Miriam hears her own heartbeat. This is a leadership moment, small but dangerous. If she pushes too hard, she becomes a bully. If she backs off, the crowd will become the bully for her. Open it, Miriam repeats, quieter. Slowly, the young man loosens his grip. The pouch drops into the sand. It looks ordinary, too ordinary for so much anger. Miriam doesn't grab it. She doesn't accuse. She bends, careful, and nudges it with her sandal toward the girl. Is this yours? The girl snatches it and checks the stitching. Her face changes. Yes. A roar of voices rises. See? Caught. Punish him. The crowd wants a clean ending. Miriam lifts her hand again. No, she says. That single word shocks them more than the theft. Miriam looks at the young man. Why? He swallows, eyes wet. My father is sick. We have no trade left. I panicked. Miriam feels the camp's hunger for judgment, and she realizes the wilderness isn't only testing Moses. It's testing whether Miriam learned anything at all. The crowd presses closer, hungry for a simple answer. Someone wants Moses. Someone wants rules. Someone wants the young man to be made an example. Miriam stands between them like a gate. The teenage girl clutches the pouch to her chest, breathing hard. He stole from my mother, she says. If he's not punished, others will do it too. Voices rise behind her. Yes, we can't let this spread. We're already tired. Miriam looks at the young man. His shoulders shake. He keeps staring at the sand like it might open and swallow him. He doesn't run. That matters. Miriam speaks, steady. You took what wasn't yours, she says. You don't get to call that fear. You don't get to call it need. The young man nods fast, ashamed. I know. The crowd murmurs, satisfied. Then Miriam adds, but we won't turn this into a spectacle. That flips the air. Some faces harden. A man spits into the dust. So now Miriam decides who gets spared, he mutters, loud enough to sting. Miriam feels the old instinct to defend herself. I'm trying to help. She bites it back. Defensiveness is fuel. She turns to the girl. Your family gets your silver back, she says, and you deserve safety. But if we crush him publicly, we teach the camp to enjoy punishment. The girl's eyes narrow. So what do we teach? Miriam points to the young man's hands. We teach him to repair what he broke. She looks around at the circle. He will return double if he can. He will work for her family until it's paid, and he will not wander near their tent again. The crowd isn't satisfied. They wanted drama, not responsibility. One woman scoffs. And who will watch him? Miriam answers without thinking. I will. Silence. Even Miriam is shocked by her own words. I will. After everything, she's offering to carry more weight. Quietly, without applause. Aaron appears at the edge of the circle, drawn by the noise. He sees Miriam's face and understands she's already chosen. The young man looks up, eyes wide. Why would you? He starts. Miriam cuts him off. Don't make this a story about me, she says. Make it a change. She turns to the girl. Do you agree? The girl hesitates. Her grip tightens on the pouch. Finally she nods once, sharp and unwilling. Yes, but if he lies, he won't, Miriam says, and she realizes she's risking her fragile reputation on a stranger's honesty. The crowd slowly breaks apart, disappointed and uneasy. Miriam watches them go, and a new fear crawls into her chest. If the young man fails, they won't blame him. They'll blame the woman who begged for mercy. That afternoon, Miriam keeps the young man close, not like a prisoner, like a responsibility. He walks 2 steps behind her as they move through the camp. People notice. Of course they notice. Every glance says the same thing, so this is Miriam now. She stops near the girl's family tent. The mother stands in the entrance, arms folded, eyes tired from too many worries. The teenage girl hovers beside her like a guard dog. Miriam nods to the young man. Tell them your name. He swallows. Eliab. The mother doesn't soften. My husband traded 3 days for that silver, she says flatly. We don't get to panic in the desert. Eliab's shoulders sink. I know. Miriam gestures to a pile of water skins and firewood. He will carry water for you, she says. He will bring wood. He will work where you can see him. No wandering, no excuses. The mother's gaze flicks to Miriam's hands, then away. And if he runs? Miriam hears the trap in that question. If Eliab runs, Miriam becomes the fool who trusted him. If Eliab stays, Miriam becomes the woman who shamed a thief but refused to crush him. Either way, people will talk. Miriam answers anyway. If he runs, I'll bring it to Moses, she says, not to the crowd. The teenage girl scoffs. So he gets protection. Miriam turns to her, voice low. He gets supervision. You get safety. Don't confuse the two. The girl's mouth opens, then shuts. She looks away, irritated that Miriam won't play the role of villain or hero. Eliab lifts the first water skin. It's heavy, and he stumbles. A few nearby men chuckle. Miriam doesn't. Again, she says. Eliab steadies himself and tries again, slower. The mother watches without mercy. The girl watches with suspicion. Miriam watches with a strange ache, because she knows what it is to be watched while you try to stand up again. As the sun drops, Miriam walks away, leaving Eliab working under their eyes. She expects relief. Instead, she feels a thin cord tightening around her ribs. Her promise is no longer a choice. It's a leash. And Miriam knows the wilderness has a way of pulling hard on whatever you claim you can carry. Miriam moves first, not like a commander sending others, like a woman refusing to let a mob decide the ending. She lifts her robe hem slightly and runs, sandals biting into sand. Behind her, she hears the crowd wake up, voices rising, questions turning into accusations. "Stop him!" someone shouts. Miriam doesn't shout back. She runs harder. Eliab is fast, thin with desperation. He weaves between the last tents, heading for open ground. If he crosses the boundary line as a fugitive, the story writes itself. Miriam trusted a thief. The camp was right. Mercy is weakness. Miriam's lungs burn. Her shawl flaps behind her like a banner she never asked for. The sun is almost gone, leaving the camp in a bruised twilight. "Eliab!" she calls, not angry, urgent. "Stop!" He glances back. His eyes are wild. For a moment, she sees it clearly. He isn't running from work. He's running from eyes, from names, from the feeling of being trapped in his own mistake. "I can't!" he yells, voice cracking. Miriam gains ground, step by step. She's not young like she was at the sea, but desperation gives strength. She reaches the boundary line just as Eliab reaches it. He hesitates, one heartbeat, and that hesitation saves him. Miriam throws herself forward and grabs his wrist, not yanking, just holding, firm, human. Eliab freezes like an animal caught in a snare. "Don't," Miriam breathes. "If you go out like this, they'll never see you as anything but a thief." He shakes his head hard. "They already don't." His voice breaks. "They stare, they laugh, they said you'll drop me when it gets hard." Miriam's fingers tighten. She remembers her own exile, the distance, the stares, the way kindness came with rules. "I know what it feels like," she says, "but running makes the rumor stronger." Eliab's chest rises and falls fast. He looks past her shoulder at the crowd closing in, shapes in the dusk, angry silhouettes. Miriam turns slightly, putting herself between Eliab and them. A man at the front points. "Let him go," he calls. "He chose his path." Miriam holds Eliab's wrist. Her voice stays steady. "No, he hasn't crossed, and neither have you." The man steps forward. Others follow. Miriam's heart hammers. She feels the old fear, being surrounded by voices, being judged, being reduced to one mistake. She raises her free hand, palm out. "This ends now," she says, but the crowd keeps coming. And Miriam realizes she might have stopped the runner, only to become the target. The crowd closes in, forming a half circle that feels like a wall. Faces appear in the dusk. Hard eyes, tight mouths. People who are tired of delays and hunger and uncertainty. people who want control. Eliab trembles beside Miriam. His free hand curls into a fist, not to fight, just from panic. Miriam keeps her grip on his wrist steady like an anchor. A man at the front steps forward again. "He ran," he says. "That's confession." Miriam shakes her head. "He ran before he crossed," she answers. "He's still here." "Because you grabbed him," the man snaps. "You always grab the story and make it yours." A murmur of agreement ripples. Miriam feels the sting of that accusation because it almost sounds true. She wants to shout back. She doesn't. Instead, she does something she hates. She uses words, not whispers, not gossip. Words with light. She raises her voice so the whole edge of camp can hear. "Listen to me," she says. "If you punish him like a trophy, you teach the camp to enjoy tearing people apart." Someone laughs bitterly. "And if we don't punish him, we teach the camp to steal." Miriam nods. "Then let's teach something harder." She turns slightly toward Eliab, still holding him. "You will go with me to Moses," she says. "You will confess. You will accept his judgment, not the crowd's hunger." The man at the front scoffs. So Moses decides everything again. Miriam's throat tightens. The same old fight. The same old jealousy in a new outfit. She can feel it spreading. People wanting a vote, wanting a revolt, wanting to feel powerful for one night. Miriam points to the line of stones that marks the boundary. "Do you remember why the camp stopped?" she asks, voice steady. The crowd falters. They remember. Everyone remembers. Miriam continues, slower. "We learned that words can drag a whole nation into stillness. So if you want to speak, speak truth, not heat." She looks directly at the man. "Did you talk to Eliab today?" The man's jaw tightens. "Why would I?" Miriam doesn't blink. "Because someone did. Someone pushed him to run. If you want justice, start there." The crowd shifts, uneasy. Some heads turn toward the men who had been whispering earlier. The air changes. Doubt creeps in. Eliab whispers, barely audible, "I didn't want to run. They said—" Miriam squeezes his wrist once. "Not now," she murmurs. "Not to the mob." She takes a step forward, pulling Eliab with her, not fleeing, not chasing, moving toward the center of camp, toward Moses. The crowd hesitates, then parts, slowly, because no one wants to be the first to cross a line God already drew. Miriam walks through the opening, feeling every stare, and she knows the next danger. Standing before Moses means the whole camp will hear the story, and the story will choose who it burns. Miriam leads Eliab through the lanes of tents. People step aside, silent, making room the way they once did for honor, now making room for conflict. Torches flicker, fires glow low, faces appear and vanish in the warm light, like witnesses choosing where to stand. Eliab stumbles once. Miriam doesn't let go. They reach the open space near Moses' tent. Aaron is there already, drawn by the noise like a man who can't escape his own role. His eyes widen when he sees Miriam holding Eliab. Moses steps out, calm but alert. He looks from Miriam to Eliab, then to the gathering crowd. He doesn't ask for the story first. He watches the people first, because he knows the people are the real storm. "What happened?" Moses asks. Eliab opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. His throat works like he's choking on shame. Miriam speaks instead, careful. "He took silver from a family. I ordered him to repay with work. Tonight, someone pushed him to run. I stopped him before he crossed the boundary." Moses' gaze sharpened slightly. "Someone pushed him?" A murmur runs through the crowd. The question turns their attention away from Eliab's mistake and toward the hidden hands behind it. That shift is dangerous. It can become a hunt for scapegoats. Moses lifts one hand. The camp quiets, not because he's loud, because he's steady. "Eliab," Moses says, "did you steal?" Eliab's eyes fill. He nods once. "Yes." "Why?" Eliab's voice shakes. "My father is sick. I was afraid. I chose wrong. Moses lets the silence sit for a moment, long enough for everyone to feel it. Then he asks, "Did you run because you wanted to escape justice, or because you were told there is no way back?" Eliab glances toward the edge of the crowd. Two familiar men stand there, arms crossed, pretending they're bored. Eliab's jaw trembles. Miriam feels the tension in the air. Everyone wants names. Everyone wants blame. It would feel so good to point. Eliab swallows. "They told me," he says, barely above a whisper, "that mercy is a trick, that I'd always be a thief, that Miriam would drop me to save herself." A hush falls like a blanket. Miriam's chest tightens. The words sting because they're aimed at her too. Drop him to save yourself. Moses looks straight at Miriam, not accusing, testing. And Miriam realizes this moment is not really about Eliab's theft. It's about whether Miriam will protect her reputation or protect the truth. Moses speaks again, quiet, but cutting through everything. "Who said this to you?" Eliab's eyes flick toward the men. The crowd leans in, and Miriam feels the camp holding its breath, waiting for the match to strike. Eliab's eyes lock on the two men at the edge. Everyone follows his gaze. The crowd shifts like a single body turning toward prey. "Say it," someone whispers. Then louder, "Name them." The two men stiffen. One raises his chin like he's above the whole thing. The other smirks, as if daring anyone to touch him. Moses waits. He doesn't force Eliab. He lets the truth ripen in silence, because silence is pressure. Eliab's voice finally breaks. "It was them," he says, pointing with a shaken hand. "They told me I'd never be clean again. They told me to run." A wave of angry sound rises, people stepping forward, fists tightening, words sharpening. Miriam feels it instantly. The mob is switching targets. If she lets it happen, she wins. Her reputation gets repaired by comparison. See? It wasn't Miriam's mercy, it was those men. It would be so easy. Moses' eyes flick to Miriam again, and she knows he sees the temptation too. Miriam steps forward before the crowd can surge. She lifts her hand. "Stop," she says. The crowd hesitates, confused. They want bloodless punishment, loud shame, public crushing, anything that feels like control. Miriam denies them again. She turns to Moses. "They used my name like a weapon," she says, "but don't let the camp turn this into a feeding circle." One of the accused men laughs. "Hear that? Miriam protects the guilty now. First the thief, now us." The words are bait. Miriam feels the old heat rise in her chest, anger begging to prove itself. She swallows it. "No," she answers evenly. "I'm protecting the camp from its own appetite." Moses nods once, almost invisible. He looks at the two men. "Did you speak to Eliab?" The first man shrugs. "We warned him, that's all." Moses' voice stays calm. "You warned him, or you pushed him?" The second man's smile fades. He glances around, noticing the crowd isn't on his side anymore. Fear flickers in his eyes. Miriam steps closer to them, but keeps distance. "You told him mercy was a trick," she says. "Do you believe that? Or did you just want to prove I was weak?" The first man's mouth tightens. He doesn't answer. Miriam turns back to Moses, and her voice drops. "If you punish them publicly tonight, the camp will learn one thing," she says. "That shame is entertainment." Moses studies her. The firelight dances across his face. "And what should they learn?" he asks. Miriam breathes in. This is the moment. "Teach them responsibility," she says. "Eliab repays. And these men, they repair what they broke too, not with bruises, with service, with truth spoken out loud." The crowd murmurs, dissatisfied. They wanted a clean villain ending. Moses raises his hand again. "Then that is what will be done," he says. A stunned hush. Miriam feels Eliab's wrist loosen in her grip. He exhales like he's been underwater, but the two men stare at Miriam now with something darker than anger, not fear, a promise. And Miriam understands she just made enemies who will not forget her name. The next morning, Miriam wakes to the sound of work, real work, not the restless packing of fear, but the steady rhythm of repair. Eliab is already at the girls' family tent, hauling water with shoulders that ache. The 2 men stand nearby, assigned to help, lifting firewood, tightening tent ropes, mending a torn awning. Their hands move, but their faces don't. They work like statues, stiff with resentment. Miriam watches from a short distance, not hiding, not hovering, just present enough that everyone knows this was not a rumor, this was a decision. The teenage girl stands with her arms crossed, eyes narrowed. She's enjoying the sight a little. Miriam can't blame her. The camp rarely gets to see wrong turned into repayment. One of the accused men, Jaden, Miriam hears someone call him, leans toward Eliab and speaks low. Miriam can't hear the words, but she sees Eliab flinch. A quiet cut, a whispered blade. Miriam steps closer, slow. Jaden straightens quickly, pretending innocence. "Is there a problem?" Miriam asks. Jaden smiles without warmth. "We're serving, like you wanted." Miriam studies him. "Service isn't only hands," she says. "It's the mouth, too." Jaden's smile widens. "So now you police speech." Miriam feels the camp watching again, like it always does when tension rises. She keeps her voice calm. "I learned what speech can do," she answers. "That's why I won't pretend it doesn't matter." Jaden bends to pick up more wood, exaggerated and mocking. "Then watch closely," he says, quietly enough to sound polite. "Because not everyone gets 7 days to come back." The words land like a stone in Miriam's stomach. He's talking about her exile. He's reminding her that mercy has limits, that the camp can choose to stop waiting next time. Miriam turns away before her face gives him satisfaction. As she walks, she hears it again. Small whispers, not from Jaden's mouth, but from the crowd's breath. People telling the story. Miriam stopped a mob. Miriam convinced Moses. Miriam is back in power. The tale is twisting already, turning her into the center again. Miriam grips her shawl and forces herself to breathe. She didn't want power, but the camp keeps handing it to her like a loaded jar, and jars crack when you carry them too long. Across the camp, Aaron approaches, eyes heavy. "Miriam," he says, "Moses wants you." Her pulse jumps. "For what?" Aaron's voice is quiet. "There's a new complaint, not about theft." He pauses, then adds the words that make Miriam's blood run cold. "It's about leadership again." Miriam follows Aaron through the camp. People make room again, but not with the old respect, with curiosity, like they're watching a rope tighten around a pole, wondering when it will snap. Near Moses' tent, a small group waits, 5 men, 2 women. Not a mob, not angry enough to be obvious. That's what makes it frightening. Quiet complaints can travel farther than shouting. Moses stands with them, listening. His posture is the same as always, steady, patient, not rushed. But Miriam notices his eyes, tired, focused, like he's been carrying too much for too long. One of the men steps forward. He's older, beard graying, hands calloused. "We mean no disrespect," he says. "We only ask what is fair." Miriam hears the familiar opening, humility with a hidden knife. Moses nods. "Speak." The man glances at Miriam, then back to Moses. "Since we waited for Miriam, since the camp stopped because of her, shouldn't she step back from guiding anything for a while?" A hush. Miriam's face stays still, but something inside her tightens. So this is the next punishment, not exile. A quieter kind, a slow removal. A woman in the group adds carefully, "People are unsettled. They don't know who to trust. Maybe silence would restore peace." Miriam almost laughs. Silence. As if silence is simple. As if silence isn't what nearly killed her outside the camp. Aaron shifts beside her, uncomfortable. Moses doesn't look at Miriam yet. He keeps his attention on the speakers. Another man speaks, voice smooth. We're not accusing. We're protecting the camp. If Miriam speaks again, people will argue again. There it is, the real fear. Miriam's voice is seen as a spark now. Miriam feels heat rise in her throat. She wants to defend herself. She wants to list the ways she's helped since returning, the theft, the mob, the service. But she remembers her own prayer, lead without needing to win. She takes one slow breath. Then she steps forward and surprises everyone, including herself. They're right, Miriam says. Aaron's head snaps toward her. The group blinks. Even Moses looks up. Miriam keeps going before doubt can steal her courage. My word stopped the camp once, she says. I won't pretend that didn't happen. If my voice creates fear right now, then I will choose restraint. The group's faces soften with relief. They think they've won. Moses watches Miriam, studying the choice. Miriam's voice drops lower. But hear me, she adds. If you silence me to feel safe, you haven't healed anything. You've only buried it. The older man frowns. What do you mean? Miriam looks him in the eyes. Jealousy doesn't die when you gag it. It grows underground. The words hang in the air. Moses finally speaks, quiet and sharp. Miriam will not be erased, he says, but she will not be used. He turns to Miriam. If you step back, he asks, what will you do instead? Miriam swallows. She didn't plan that far. She only knew the next right step. She answers anyway. I will teach the women and the young ones what words can do, not as a ruler, as a warning. Moses nods once. The small group looks uneasy now. They wanted Miriam gone, not transformed. And Miriam realizes stepping back might not lower the tension. It might change where the tension points. Miriam doesn't announce her new role with a speech. She just starts. At midday, when the camp rests, she sits under the thin shade of a stretched cloth near the women's tents. A simple spot, no platform, no tambourine, just dust and quiet. At first, only 3 come, 2 younger women and an older one with tired eyes. They sit a little apart, like they're not sure this is allowed. Miriam keeps her hands in her lap, visible, calm, no hiding, no performing. She begins with one sentence. A rumor is a fire you don't feel until your own tent is burning. The older woman snorts softly. We all talk, she says. That's not fire, that's life. Miriam nods. Yes, and a knife is also part of life. That doesn't make it safe. The younger women exchange looks. One of them whispers, Are you speaking about Moses? Miriam pauses. The old story wants to drag her back. She refuses. I'm speaking about me, Miriam says. That lands harder than any accusation. The circle goes still. Miriam continues, slow and honest. When I spoke against Moses, I told myself I was protecting the people. I told myself I was asking fair questions. But I also wanted to feel equal. I wanted my voice to weigh as much as his. The younger woman's brow furrows. Is that wrong? Miriam looks at her. Wanting to be heard isn't wrong, she says. Using whispers to get heard is. A breeze lifts the edge of the shade cloth. Sunlight cuts across Miriam's face. She doesn't flinch. The older woman leans forward. So what do we do? Never warn each other? Never speak? Miriam answers with a simple rule. If you wouldn't say it where the person can hear you, don't say it at all. One of the younger women laughs nervously. That would end half the camp. Miriam's mouth tightens into something almost like a smile. It might save the other half. More women begin to drift closer, drawn by the stillness. 10, 15. Faces that once cheered her by the sea now watch her like students testing a teacher who failed a test. Miriam feels the pressure rise again, the temptation to sound wise, to sound strong, to win them back. She resists. She keeps it plain. Gossip feels small, she says, but it moves people. It moved Aaron. It moved me. It stopped the whole camp. A murmur rolls through the group, some shame, some agreement, some skepticism. Then a voice cuts in from behind the circle. A woman Miriam doesn't recognize steps forward, chin high. "Easy for you to say," she says loudly. "You spoke against Moses and still came back. Some of us lose everything for less." The women go quiet. Miriam turns slowly to face the stranger, and she realizes this isn't a lesson anymore, it's a challenge. The woman steps closer into the shade, and the air feels tighter immediately. She's about Miriam's age, maybe a little younger. Dark hair pulled back under a plain head covering, eyes sharp, like she's practiced being ignored and decided never again. Miriam keeps her voice calm. "What's your name?" The woman hesitates, then answers like it costs her. "Tirzah." Miriam nods. "Tell me what you mean." Tirzah crosses her arms. "I mean, people whisper. People accuse, and the powerful survive. You were punished, yes, but the camp stopped for you. The camp waited for you. If I spoke against Moses, they'd throw me outside and forget my name." A few women murmur, not because they hate Miriam, because the fear sounds true. Miriam feels the circle tilt, as if everyone is leaning toward Tirzah's anger. It would be easy to defend herself. I suffered. I was isolated. I was ashamed. But defense would only make her look like she's protecting her rank. So Miriam doesn't defend. She agrees with the part that is true. "You're right," Miriam says quietly. "The camp remembers my name. That is a kind of shelter." The women blink. Tirzah's eyes narrow, confused. She expected a fight. Miriam continues, careful. "But shelter can become a cage. When everyone knows your name, your failure becomes everyone's story. And people will use it, like they tried to use it last night." Tirzah scoffs. "So we should pity you?" Miriam shakes her head. "No, I'm saying something worse." She leans forward slightly. "If you believe only the powerful survive, you'll start acting like power is the only God. And then your mouth becomes a weapon." A silence falls. Some women look down. Others stare at Tirzah. Tirzah's voice rises. "So you're calling me dangerous?" Miriam answers steady. "I'm calling the idea dangerous. The idea that the camp is divided into voices that matter and voices that don't." She gestures around the circle. "That idea is how jealousy starts. That idea is how rebellion starts. That idea is how families split." Tirzah's eyes flash. "And whose idea is it that Moses speaks face to face, and the rest of us don't?" The question lands like a stone thrown at a window. Miriam feels the women hold their breath. That's a line, a risky line, a line Miriam once crossed. Miriam hears her own heartbeat. She chooses her words like she's handling hot coals. "Moses didn't choose that," Miriam says. "God did." Tirzah tilts her head. "And you're sure?" Miriam doesn't flinch. "I'm sure enough to fear what happens when we pretend otherwise." Tirzah steps back, smiling slightly, not satisfied, not defeated. The women in the circle start whispering, low and uncertain, exactly what Miriam was trying to stop. Miriam feels it. The lesson is slipping, and Tirzah, with her sharp eyes, has done something clever. She didn't accuse Miriam. She made the women question Moses. When the gathering ends, the women don't leave together. They drift off in small pairs, whispering, glancing back at Miriam like she's a signpost they no longer trust. Miriam stays seated under the shade cloth, hands resting on her knees. She watches Tirzah walk away with steady steps, not hurrying, not hiding, like a woman who came to plant something and is satisfied the seed took. A familiar voice breaks the quiet. "You handled that carefully." Miriam turns. Moses stands a few paces away, keeping distance like he always does when a crowd has just thinned. His face is calm, but his eyes are alert. "You were listening," Miriam says. "I heard the last part," Moses replies. It was enough. Miriam exhales. She didn't come to learn, she says. She came to test the camp. Moses nods once. Testing is not always evil, he says, but it can become a snare. Miriam rubs her thumb against her bracelet, a small nervous habit. What do we do? She asks. If we silence her, she becomes a martyr. If we ignore her, she becomes a voice in every tent. Moses doesn't answer immediately. He looks past Miriam at the tents, at the smoke, at the people moving like a nervous animal herd. Then he says something that chills Miriam more than any threat. Doubt is already here. Miriam's chest tightens. Because of me, she whispers. Moses doesn't deny it. He also doesn't accuse. Because of all of us, he says. But yes, your story gave it a handle. Miriam swallows hard. I tried to turn it into a warning. And that is why I came, Moses says. A warning can become wisdom, but only if it stays clean. Miriam looks down. How do I keep it clean? Moses' voice is quiet. Tell the truth before the rumor tells it for you. Miriam looks up, confused. Moses continues, Tonight I will speak to the elders about moving forward, about patience, about unity. He pauses. And you, Miriam, you will speak to the women again. Miriam's stomach drops. After today, they'll think I'm defending you. Moses' eyes hold hers. You're not defending me, he says. You're defending the camp from fire. Miriam's mouth goes dry. What do I say? Moses answers with one sentence. Say what you wish you had said before you spoke against me. Miriam feels the weight of that like a stone placed in her hands. Moses turns to leave, then stops. And Miriam, don't argue with Tirzah's anger in private circles. He looks back. Bring it into the open, where it can't grow teeth. Miriam watches him go, and fear twists in her gut. Because speaking in the open means risking everything again. And somewhere out in the tents, Tirzah is already whispering. That night, Miriam stands near the center of camp, where the torches make faces look honest and harsh at the same time. The women gather in a wide half-circle, older mothers, younger wives, girls who are learning how stories work. Men linger farther back, pretending they're not listening. Tirzah is there too, not hiding. She stands with her arms relaxed, expression calm, like she's already won something. Miriam feels her pulse in her throat. She wants to keep this small, private, safe. But Moses' words echo. Bring it into the open, where it can't grow teeth. Miriam lifts her chin. I won't sing tonight, she says. I won't perform. I will only tell the truth. A hush settles. Miriam continues, voice clear. I spoke against Moses. I told myself it was fairness. It was also jealousy. Some women flinch at the word. Jealousy is ugly. It's safer to call it concern. Miriam doesn't soften it. I wanted my voice to be heavier, she says. I wanted people to look at me the way they look at him, and I used a whisper to do it. She pauses. The torches crackle. Somewhere a baby fusses, then quiets. Miriam raises her hands so everyone can see, hands that once hid under a shawl. God stopped me, she says, not to destroy me, to warn all of us. The tongue can stop a whole nation. A woman near the front asks, trembling, Are you saying we should never question Moses? The question is bait. Miriam feels it. If she answers wrong, she becomes either a tyrant's guard or a rebel's symbol. She answers carefully. Questions are not evil, she says, but questions spoken behind backs become knives. Tirzah steps forward, voice smooth. And what if the back is all we're given, she asks. What if leaders don't listen unless the camp is loud? Murmurs rise. That's the kind of sentence people repeat in tents. Miriam looks at Tirzah steadily. Then we go to them, she says, face to face, like adults, like family. Tirzah smiles faintly. And if they call you rebellious? Miriam feels the camp watching her like a test. She answers with the truth that scares her most. Then we accept the cost of speaking openly, she says, but we do not poison the camp to protect ourselves. A long silence. Then an older woman, one who has buried more fear than most, steps forward. When you were outside the camp, she says quietly, I wanted to hate you. Miriam's breath catches. The woman continues, because we had to wait, because my children cried, but when we waited, I realized something. We weren't only waiting for you, we were waiting for our mouths to learn. A soft wave of emotion moves through the women, shame, relief, understanding. Tirza's calm expression tightens, just for a moment. Miriam sees it. The fire didn't catch. Not tonight. But Miriam knows Tirza didn't come to lose. She came to learn who in the camp is ready to doubt out loud. And now she knows. Miriam wakes to a camp that feels split down the middle, nothing visible like a wall, but something in the way people greet each other. Shorter smiles, longer pauses, more listening than speaking. Aaron finds her near the cooking fires. His face is tight. Moses called the elders, he says. It's tense. Miriam follows him to the meeting space. The elders sit in a rough circle on low stones and folded cloth. Men with weathered faces, voices that carry weight because they've carried families through desert nights. Moses stands calm, but his silence is not peace today. It's restraint. One elder speaks first, a thick-voiced man named Husham. We should move on, he says. The camp needs marching, not meetings. Another elder answers, and march into what? A camp full of whispers? We'll drag the poison with us. A third elder, young compared to the others, glances toward Miriam. This started with Miriam, he says carefully, and now the women are gathering at night, speaking openly. Is that wise? Miriam feels every eye slide toward her like a blade drawn slowly. She keeps her face still. Moses doesn't defend her. He doesn't accuse her. He waits. Aaron shifts, uncomfortable. Miriam steps forward before the elders can turn her into a symbol. Yes, she says, voice even. It started with me. A few elders nod, pleased to hear admission. Miriam continues, but it doesn't end by pretending women don't speak. They speak in tents. They speak at water jars. They speak while raising your children. If you want peace, you don't silence them. You teach them. Husham scoffs. Teach them to obey. Miriam meets his eyes. Teach them to speak cleanly, she replies. Obedience without trust becomes fear. Fear becomes rebellion. The circle stirs. Some elders like the logic. Others hate the tone. Then a new voice enters, cold and controlled. And what do we do with Tirza? Miriam's stomach tightens, so they know her name already. An elder points. She is stirring doubt. She asked if God chose Moses or if Moses chose himself. Murmurs rise. The question is dangerous, not because it's new, because it's contagious. Aaron looks at Moses anxiously, as if expecting lightning. Moses finally speaks. Bring Tirza, he says. A ripple of surprise. Some elders look relieved. Good, end it. Others look nervous. A confrontation will spread it. Miriam feels her pulse spike. Bringing Tirza into the open is right, and risky. Aaron leans toward Miriam, whispering, if she refuses, what then? Miriam doesn't answer, because she knows something Aaron doesn't. People like Tirza don't refuse. They perform. And when Tirza arrives, she won't come alone. She'll come with an audience. They don't have to search long. Tirza arrives as if she's been waiting for the summons. She enters the meeting space with steady steps, head high, a small group of women behind her. Not a crowd, but enough to make a point. I'm not alone. The elders stiffen. Some look offended that women are even present. Others look uneasy because they know the women already heard last night's words. Moses doesn't react to the group. He only looks at Tirza. Tirza, he says calm, you asked questions that stirred fear. Tirza bows her head slightly, not in submission, in courtesy. I asked what many already whisper, she replies. A few elders bristle. Hushem's voice is sharp. We don't need whispers in this camp. Tirzah turns toward him, polite as a blade. Then give us answers in the open. Murmurs spread. Even the elders feel the pull of that sentence. It sounds like fairness. It smells like justice. It hides a trap. Miriam watches Tirzah carefully. She recognizes the skill. Say something true enough that no one can deny it, then use it to open a door to something dangerous. Moses speaks again. What is it you want? Tirzah doesn't hesitate. I want clarity, she says. If God truly speaks through Moses in a way he does not speak through others, then let Moses say it plainly to the camp. Let the people hear. Let it settle. An elder mutters, He's already said enough. Tirzah lifts her chin. Not to the women, she answers. Not to the young. They only hear what's repeated in tense. The circle shifts. Miriam feels the truth of it. Most people don't stand near Moses when he speaks. They hear echoes. Echoes become rumor. Moses' eyes narrow slightly, not angry, measuring. And if I speak, he asks, will you accept what you hear? Tirzah smiles faintly. If it is true, why would I resist it? Miriam's stomach twists. That's a dangerous promise. It sounds humble. It can be broken later without shame. One elder points at Tirzah. You're trying to force a sign. Tirzah spreads her hands. I'm trying to prevent another split, she says, voice smooth. Miriam already showed how fragile trust is. Do you want the camp to stop again? Miriam feels her name used like a stone thrown into the circle. Some eyes cut toward her. Tirzah did that on purpose, wrapping Miriam's failure around her own plan like a rope. Miriam steps forward, unable to stay silent. Don't use me, she says, steady. If you want clarity, say that. Don't dress it in my shame. Tirzah turns to Miriam, expression almost gentle. Sister, she says, I'm using what the camp already remembers. Miriam's jaw tightens. Moses raises his hand. Enough, he says. He looks at Tirzah. Tonight, I will speak to the camp. A ripple runs through everyone, relief, fear, excitement. An open declaration could calm the people, or ignite them. Tirzah bows again, satisfied. Miriam looks at Moses and sees something rare in his eyes. Concern, not for himself. For what the people might do with the truth. All day the camp buzzes, pretending it isn't buzzing. People accidentally pass Moses' tent. Women refill water jars slower than usual, listening for scraps of news. Even children sense something and quiet down when adults stop smiling. Miriam feels it like static on her skin. She finds Moses alone for a moment near the meeting tent, checking the ropes like he's trying to keep his hands busy. The sky is bright, but his face is shadowed with thought. You didn't have to agree to her, Miriam says. Moses doesn't look up. If I refused, he replies, she would say I'm hiding. And if you speak, Miriam says, she will say she forced you. Moses finally looks at her. Then I speak anyway, he says, not for her, for the ones who are quietly afraid. Miriam swallows. What will you say? Moses' voice is low. I will say what God already said, that I didn't take this role. It was given, and that questioning is not rebellion until it becomes poison. Miriam nods slowly. It's right. It's also dangerous, because people don't just hear words. They choose which words to carry. As evening comes, torches rise like little suns across the camp. A crowd forms, too many to count. Elders stand near the front. Women gather in clusters. Tirzah is there, close enough to see Moses clearly. She looks calm, expectant. Miriam stands at the side, not hiding, but not central. She feels every glance. Some women look grateful. Some look suspicious. Some look like they're deciding what story to repeat tomorrow. Moses steps forward. The murmurs fade. He speaks without flourish. No drama, just truth. The Lord placed his words in my mouth, he says, not because I asked, not because I was better, because he chose. The crowd is still. Moses continues, If you have questions, bring them into the light. Do not sharpen them in the dark. Do not trade them like goods between tents. A few people nod. Others frown. Tirza's expression doesn't change. She's listening for a crack. Moses adds, "The Lord hears what is spoken against his servant." Miriam feels the camp flinch. Everyone remembers her exile. The memory is a shadow under Moses' words. Then Moses says something Miriam didn't expect. "And I, Moses, also must listen. If you fear me, come anyway. Bring elders, bring witnesses, but come." A ripple of surprise moves through the crowd. An invitation. A door opened. For a moment Miriam thinks, this might calm them. Then Tirza speaks up, loud enough to carry but respectful enough to sound pure. "If you listen," she asks, "will you allow other voices to guide too?" The crowd leans forward. That question is a hook in the water. Moses pauses. He chooses his words carefully. "Others will serve," he says. "Elders will judge. Priests will teach. But the command that leads the camp comes from the Lord." Tirza nods slowly, too slowly, like she's accepting it and storing it. Miriam sees it clearly now. Tirza didn't come for an answer. She came to measure the camp's reaction, to see who nodded, who frowned, who looked away. A public truth has been spoken, and somewhere in the crowd, private alliances are forming. After the assembly, the camp doesn't relax. It only changes shape. Groups break off like drifting islands, people talking in low circles, eyes darting, testing who agrees with whom. Miriam tries to slip away quietly, but a woman steps into her path near the water jars. She's older than Tirza, hair threaded with gray, posture confident. Two others stand behind her like shadows. "Miriam," the woman says, polite. A word. Miriam stops. "Say it." The woman lowers her voice. "Some of us are grateful you spoke openly," she begins. "Grateful you admitted jealousy. Grateful you warned us." Miriam waits. Praise is often a rope. The woman continues, "But now Moses has spoken, and still, the camp feels uneven. His words carry more weight than anyone's, and he knows it." Miriam feels her stomach tighten. She recognizes the angle. The woman leans closer. "You could balance it," she says. "You and Aaron. You have history. You have respect. If you stood together openly, people would feel safe." Miriam hears it clearly. Become a counterweight. Become a rival, without calling it rivalry. Miriam keeps her face calm. "And what do you want from me?" she asks. The woman's eyes flick toward the tents, then back. "A meeting," she says. "Quiet. Just a few families. We want to talk about shared leadership, about how decisions are made." Miriam's mind flashes back to the cloud, the voice, the boundary, her hands changing, the camp stopping. She also remembers something else, the sweet pull of being needed. That is the true danger. Miriam takes a breath. "If you want to speak to Moses," she says, "go to him." The woman's mouth tightens. "We did. He listens, but he still decides." Miriam's voice stays steady. "And you want someone who can pressure him." The woman doesn't deny it. She lifts her chin. "We want someone who can make him share." Miriam looks at the two women behind her, eager, nervous, ready to belong to something. Miriam understands them. That's what scares her. She shakes her head. "I won't be your lever," she says. The woman's politeness cracks. "So, you'll stay on his side after everything." Miriam's throat tightens. Old shame rises. She fights it down. "I'm not on Moses' side," she says. "I'm on the side that keeps us walking." The woman steps back, eyes cold now. "Then don't be surprised," she says softly, "when others choose a different way to walk." She turns and leaves. The two shadows follow. Miriam stands alone, listening to the camp breathe like a restless animal. She feels it in her bones. The factions are real now, and she has just refused one, which means they will look for someone else who won't refuse. The next day, Miriam hears it in pieces, like a pot dropped and shattered, then swept under the sand. A short argument near the bread line. A sudden hush when an elder walks past. A woman saying, "Don't speak here," and pulling her friend away. By midday, Aaron finds Miriam with a look that answers the question before she asks it. "Something's forming," he says quietly. Miriam's stomach tightens. "Who?" Aaron hesitates. That hesitation is a name without a name. "A group of families," he admits, "some elders, and—" He lowers his voice. "Korah." Miriam feels the word land like a stone. Korah, a Levite, close enough to holy things to feel entitled, skilled with people, skilled with complaints that sound like fairness. Miriam looks toward the center of camp, where men gather in a tight circle, speaking with careful faces. She sees Korah among them, tall, composed, hands folded like a man already rehearsing his righteousness. Miriam turns back to Aaron. "You knew?" she asks. Aaron's eyes flick away. "I heard late." Miriam's voice sharpens. "And what did you do?" Aaron exhales. "I listened." That confession stings. Miriam remembers his nod beside her long ago, the first spark. "Why?" she asks, softer. Aaron's shoulders sag. "Because they said the same thing you said once," he whispers, "that God speaks through more than one mouth." Miriam closes her eyes for a moment. The wilderness doesn't invent new storms. It repeats old ones until you learn. She opens her eyes. "They will use me," she says. "My story, my exile." Aaron nods, ashamed. "Already." As if summoned by the sentence, Tirzah appears across the way, speaking to a cluster of women. She isn't leading them like Miriam used to. She's feeding them questions. Heads nod. Hands cover mouths. The doubt is spreading in a tidy, polite way. Miriam moves toward Moses' tent, but stops when she sees the meeting already happening. Moses with a few elders, voices low, faces tight. They are trying to hold the camp together with hands that are tired. Miriam realizes something then, painful and clear. Moses can't fight every whisper, and neither can she. But she can choose where to stand when the whisper turns into a shout. She turns to Aaron. "If Korah calls a public gathering," she says, "we go." Aaron's eyes widen. "To stop it?" Miriam shakes her head. "To witness it," she says, "so truth is not told later by the loudest mouths." Aaron swallows. "And if they demand you speak?" Miriam's voice is quiet. "Then I will speak." She looks out at the moving tents, the wandering children, the smoke rising into blue sky. The camp feels normal again. That's how rebellions begin. The public gathering happens at sunset, just as Miriam predicted, not announced by horn, not declared by command. It spreads like a whisper that suddenly becomes a crowd. People drift toward Korah's area of tents, pretending it's coincidence. By the time the torches are lit, a wide circle has formed, men in front, women behind, children perched near tent ropes to see. Miriam arrives with Aaron, staying at the edge. She doesn't push forward. She doesn't hide either. She watches. Korah stands in the center like he belongs there. His robe is dark, clean, carefully tied. His voice is calm, warm, almost gentle. "My brothers," he says, smiling, "my sisters, we have walked far. We have suffered much, and we are all holy." The crowd murmurs approval. All holy. That phrase is honey. Korah continues, "Why then should one family rise above the assembly of the Lord?" He doesn't say Moses' name yet. He lets everyone think it. That's skill. Miriam sees heads nodding. People who are exhausted love a simple enemy, a single point to blame. Korah lifts a hand as if offering peace. "This is not rebellion," he says. "This is fairness." Miriam's stomach turns. Those words are the same clothes jealousy wears. A man beside Korah steps forward, Dathan, face hard like sun-baked clay. "We were promised a land," he says, voice sharp. "Instead we got sand. Who led us here?" Murmurs rise again, darker now. Aaron's fingers twitch beside Miriam. She can feel him wanting to defend Moses, wanting to argue, wanting to shut it down. Miriam whispers, "Not yet," because she knows. If Aaron explodes, Korah wins. Korah looks around the circle like a shepherd looking at sheep. "We honor Moses," he says smoothly, "but honor is not the same as obedience without question." Now Moses' name appears, wrapped in false respect. Somewhere behind the men, Miriam hears Tirzah's voice, low but clear. "If Miriam could question him, why can't we?" The sentence rolls through the women like a wave. Miriam closes her eyes for one heartbeat. There it is, her story, used as permission. Korah smiles wider. "Yes," he says, as if he heard it. Even Miriam, faithful Miriam, raised questions. The camp waited, the Lord corrected, and we moved on. He says it like her shame is a lesson he owns. Miriam's jaw tightens. Korah turns toward Moses' tent area, voice still soft. "Let Moses and Aaron come," he says. "Let us settle this without anger. Let the Lord show whom he has chosen." The crowd murmurs, excited now. A challenge sounds like hope when you're tired. Miriam looks at Aaron. His face is pale. Because the words, "Let the Lord show," are not a request. They are a dare. And Miriam knows the wilderness doesn't treat dares kindly. Word reaches Moses fast, faster than a runner, because the whole camp carries it. By the time Miriam and Aaron reach the open space near Moses' tent, Moses is already there. Not rushing, not arguing, just standing like a man who has seen this kind of storm before. Korah's crowd shifts when Moses appears. Some step back, guilty. Some step forward, bold. The circle tightens. Korah lifts his hands in greeting. "Moses," he says warmly, as if inviting a friend to dinner, "we only want what is right." Moses looks at him steadily. "Then speak," he says. Korah gestures toward the people. "The whole assembly is holy," he says louder now. "Why do you exalt yourselves above them?" Aaron's shoulders tense. Miriam sees it. The old wound in Aaron. The old hunger to be more than second. Moses doesn't answer with anger. He does something that shocks the crowd. He falls face down. The torches crackle. People stare, confused. This isn't strength the way they understand it. This isn't a debate. This is surrender. Like Moses is asking God to step in because human words can't. Korah's smile flickers for the first time. Moses rises slowly, sand clinging to his robe. His voice is calm, but it carries. "In the morning," he says, "the Lord will show who belongs to him." A murmur of excitement and fear. Moses points to Korah and the men with him. "Take censers," he says. "Put fire and incense in them before the Lord. The man whom the Lord chooses, he is holy." The crowd inhales. A test, a sign, a moment where God will answer publicly. Miriam feels her stomach drop. She knows what happens when people dare God for entertainment. Even if it's not entertainment, it becomes that in the mouths of the watchers. Korah nods, acting calm. "Agreed," he says. But Miriam sees his eyes. He didn't expect Moses to offer a test. He expected a fight. Now he has something better, a stage. Aaron whispers to Miriam, "This is dangerous." Miriam doesn't answer. She's staring at the faces in the crowd, people who have suffered and are now hungry for spectacle, as if a sign will make them feel safe again. Moses turns to Aaron, voice lower now. "It is enough," he says to Korah's group. "Is it a small thing that you have been brought near to serve? And now you seek the priesthood too." Korah's jaw tightens. For one moment, the smile drops completely. Because Moses named the real desire, not fairness, not holiness, power. The crowd murmurs, uneasy. Some look at Korah differently now. Korah forces the smile back. "Tomorrow," he says, "we'll see." He turns away, and the crowd disperses like smoke, quick, restless, thrilled. Miriam watches them go and feels the camp balance on a knife edge. Tomorrow isn't just a test for Korah. It's a test for everyone who clapped for the dare. The camp tries to sleep, but the air won't settle. Torches burn later than usual. People move between tents as if walking can outrun fear. Somewhere, A baby cries too long, and no one complains. Everyone is listening for bigger sounds. Miriam sits outside her tent, shawl wrapped tight, staring at the dark line of hills. She can't stop thinking about the word morning, a clean word that can carry judgment. Aaron paces nearby. His sandals scrape sand in the same short loop again and again. He doesn't know how to be still tonight. "You think Korah will actually come with the censer?" Aaron asks, voice low. Miriam answers without looking at him. "He has to," she says. "If he backs down now, he loses his crowd." Aaron's breath trembles. And if he comes, what if God chooses him? Miriam finally turns. "Do you believe that?" she asks. Aaron hesitates. That hesitation is the real answer. Miriam's chest tightens. "Aaron," she says softly, "this is what jealousy does. It makes you imagine God will bless your hunger." Aaron's face hardens, then cracks. "You think I don't know?" he whispers. "I watched you pay for it." The words sting. Miriam didn't want to be a lesson. She became one anyway. Footsteps approach, steady, calm. Moses. He stops a few paces away, not intruding, just present like a shadow that gives direction. "Miriam," he says. "Aaron." Aaron's pacing stops instantly. Moses looks tired, but his eyes are clear. "Tomorrow, do not argue with them," he says. "Do not shout. Let the Lord answer." Aaron clenches his fists. "They're dragging your name through the camp." Moses' voice stays quiet. "My name is not the danger." He looks at Miriam. "You understand this," he says. Miriam swallows. "They want a story," she replies. Moses nods. "Yes, and if we give them the wrong kind, they will feed on it." A wind gust rattles tent ropes. The camp feels like a sea again, dark, restless, ready to swallow someone. Miriam asks the question she's afraid of. What if the people follow Korah after the sign? Moses doesn't pretend certainty. He answers with the only truth he has. "Then the wilderness will show them the cost." He turns to leave, then pauses. "Miriam," he says softer, "tomorrow, stand where you can see the faces. Remember them, even the ones who hate you." Miriam's throat tightens. "Why?" Moses answers, "Because after judgment, someone still has to lead the survivors." He walks away. Miriam sits frozen, hearing that word. Survivors. The camp is waiting for thunder, and Miriam realizes she may wake to a different nation. At dawn, the camp is already awake, not from energy, from fear. People stand outside tents as if sleep might make them miss the moment everything changes. Miriam walks with Aaron toward the meeting place. The air is cool, but her palms are damp. She keeps her shawl loose, hands visible. No hiding today. Korah arrives with his men, 250 leaders, faces Miriam recognizes, men who once spoke wisdom at councils, men who carried authority in the camp like polished stone. Each holds a censer, metal catching the early light. It looks holy. That's the danger. Rebellion, dressed like worship. Moses stands near the front. His tan robe hangs plain against the rising sun. Aaron stands beside him, shoulders tight. Miriam stays just behind, watching faces like Moses told her, faces eager, afraid, hungry for a sign. Korah steps forward, calm as ever. "We are ready," he says. Moses' voice carries across the crowd. "By this you shall know whom the Lord has chosen." The censers are prepared, fires placed, incense is readied. A sweet smell begins to rise, sharp and heavy, curling through the air. People inhale it like proof, like comfort. Miriam feels a chill run under her skin. The scene looks sacred. It sounds sacred. It could fool almost anyone. Then Moses speaks again, louder, urgent now. "Step back from the tents of these wicked men," he warns. "Do not touch what belongs to them, lest you be swept away." The crowd hesitates. Some move back quickly, others freeze, offended. Korah's men stand firm, gripping their censers like trophies. Miriam searches faces and sees it. Many don't know what to do when obedience costs them pride. Aaron whispers, "They won't move." Miriam's mouth goes dry. "Some will," she says, "if fear reaches them in time." A sudden hush spreads, not because someone shouted, but because the ground feels wrong, not shaking, not breaking, just tense, like a drum skin pulled too tight. Miriam's breath catches. The incense smoke curls upward, then wavers sideways as if the air itself flinches. Korah's smile fades. For the first time, he looks uncertain. Moses stands tall and still. His eyes are fixed on the rebel line, voice steady like a final boundary. "The Lord will do something new," he says. The words hang in the cool morning like a blade. Miriam grips her shawl, heart-pounding, because she knows what something new means. It means there will be no going back. And in the silence after Moses' warning, the earth holds its breath. For one long heartbeat, nothing happens. That's the cruel part. The camp stands frozen, eyes wide, incense still rising like a prayer that forgot who it was for. Some people take Moses' warning seriously and back away. Others stay planted, arms crossed, daring the morning to prove them wrong. Miriam watches Korah. His jaw is tight now. His fingers grip the censer so hard his knuckles lighten. The sweet smoke curls around him like a crown. Then the earth gives a sound, not loud, not like thunder, more like a deep groan, the kind you feel in your feet before you understand it. A crack forms in the ground near the rebels' line. Someone gasps. Someone laughs nervously, as if it's a trick of light. The crack spreads. People stumble backward, shouting. A mother yanks her child by the arm. A man drops his censer in shock, and it clatters against stone. Miriam's breath catches. She doesn't move yet. She can't. Her eyes are locked on the faces, like Moses told her, because the faces show the real judgment. Fear, disbelief, regret. Korah steps back once, finally, too late to look confident. "Wait," he starts. The ground shifts again. The split widens under the rebels' feet. It's not gore. It's not a spectacle of blood. It's worse. The ground itself refusing to hold them. Miriam hears screams, short, panicked. She turns her head away for a moment, not because she wants to ignore it, but because she can't watch people disappear into a punishment they dared into being. The air fills with dust. The incense smoke twists and breaks apart. When Miriam looks again, the line that held Korah and his men is gone, only settling dust, scattered objects, and a silence that feels too big for a camp. No one cheers. No one dares. The crowd stands shaken, staring at the place where certainty used to stand. Aaron's lips tremble. He looks like he might fall. Moses remains upright, face hard with grief, not triumph. Grief. Miriam's hands shake under her shawl. The wilderness is quiet now, but it's the quiet after a warning is ignored. Then another sound rises, different from the earth. A roar of anger from within the crowd, from those who didn't step close enough to be taken. "They died because Moses wanted it," someone yells. Miriam turns sharply. That sentence is the last spark. And the camp, still alive, still scared, turns its fear into blame. Miriam realizes the sign didn't end the rebellion. It only changed its shape. The dust hasn't even settled, and already the camp is dividing again, this time not around Korah, but around a story. People push forward, shouting over each other. "Moses did this." He set them up. God would not, unless Moses asked. Miriam feels sick. The sign that should have stopped the madness has only made it louder, because fear doesn't like silence. Fear wants a target. Moses lifts his hand, but the crowd is too hot now. Their words crash like waves. Miriam sees faces she knows, men who once nodded at wisdom, women who once sang with her, now twisted with panic. A rock hits the ground near Moses' feet, not thrown to kill, thrown to threaten. The sound makes everyone flinch. Aaron grabs Moses' arm. "We have to go," he whispers. Moses doesn't want to leave. Leaving looks like guilt, but staying Looks like disaster. Miriam steps in front of Aaron for a heartbeat, scanning the crowd. She sees Tirzah, eyes wide, not triumphant, not ashamed, calculating. She's watching what the camp will believe now. Miriam's mouth goes dry. This is how rumors survive signs. Then Moses turns, sharp, to Aaron. "Take the censer," he commands. "Run into the assembly. Make atonement. Wrath has gone out." The words are urgent, different from Moses' usual calm. Miriam hears it. Danger spreading fast, invisible, not a sword but something worse. Panic and judgment moving through the people like sickness. Aaron hesitates. He just watched men swallowed by earth. Now he's being told to run toward the angry crowd with holy fire. For one heartbeat, Aaron looks like the old Aaron, wanting to step back, wanting someone else to lead. Miriam meets his eyes. "Go," she says quietly. Aaron's gaze flickers. "Miriam." "Go," she repeats, firmer. "Don't let fear write the ending." Aaron grabs a censer and moves, fast, stumbling at first, then running. The crowd parts in confusion as he pushes into them, incense smoke rising again, not as a trophy this time, but as a desperate plea. Miriam watches, heart hammering, as Aaron disappears into the mass of bodies. Moses stands still, hands clenched, praying without words, and Miriam realizes something terrifying. After all that, the camp is still one step away from destroying itself, and Aaron is in the middle of it. Aaron runs into the crowd like a man running into a storm with only a lamp. The censer swings in his hand, hot coals glowing beneath the incense. Smoke curls upward, thick and sharp, cutting through dust and shouting. Miriam can't see everything. Too many bodies, too much movement, but she sees enough to feel sick. People are dropping to their knees. Others stumble away like their strength is leaking out. Panic spreads faster than any command. "Moses cursed us," someone cries. Moses grips his staff but doesn't lift it like a weapon. He looks helpless for the first time Miriam can remember, not because he lacks power, but because power doesn't stop fear once it's loose. Aaron pushes deeper, coughing, eyes watering from smoke and dust. He doesn't look like a priest in that moment. He looks like a brother trying to hold a family together with bare hands. Miriam's feet move without permission. She walks forward, careful, staying out of the crush, but close enough to see. Aaron reaches a point where the crowd thins, where people on one side are standing, and on the other side they're collapsing. A line, invisible but real, like judgment has drawn a border through the camp. Aaron stops there. He lifts the censer high, smoke rising like a signal flare. He plants his feet in the sand. He doesn't shout. He simply stands between those still standing and those falling. Miriam's breath catches. The image is terrifying and holy at the same time. Aaron, trembling, holding incense as if it's a shield. Slowly, so slowly, people stop dropping. The cries soften. The chaos loses its teeth. The camp doesn't become calm, but it stops unraveling. Aaron stays in place until Moses signals him back. When he finally returns, his robe is dusty, his face streaked with sweat, his hands shaking. He looks at Miriam like he's just come back from the edge of something he can't name. Miriam steps toward him. "You did it," she whispers. Aaron swallows. "No," he says, voice ragged. "The Lord did." Moses approaches, eyes heavy. For a moment, the three of them stand together, Moses, Aaron, Miriam, like a family that survived a fire they helped start. Around them, the camp is quiet again, but not peaceful. Quiet, like people walking carefully around a wound. Miriam looks across the tents and sees Tirzah in the distance, face unreadable now, not smiling, not arguing, just watching. Miriam feels a cold certainty settle in her chest. After today, no one will doubt that God can answer, but many will still doubt why he answered, and that doubt will not disappear with smoke. It will change form. It will wait. The camp doesn't celebrate survival. It mourns it in a way that has no songs. People speak in careful voices now, as if loud words might wake the ground again. Miriam walks alone at the edge of the tents, breathing dust, watching families move slower than they used to. A mother holds her child tighter. Two men fix a rope without talking. No one wants to be the next spark. Aaron sits near Moses' tent, staring at his own hands like he can still feel the censer's heat. Moses stands apart, shoulders heavy, not as a winner, as a man who has watched his people hurt themselves and can't unsee it. Miriam wants to go to them, to say something, to make it better. But she remembers the beginning of all this, one sentence that ruined everything. So she chooses silence, not the silence of fear, the silence of restraint. Tirzah appears near the water jars, surrounded by fewer women now. Her confidence is smaller, but not gone. When she sees Miriam, she steps forward, cautious, like approaching a fire that might still burn. "You were right," Tirzah says, voice low. It sounds painful for her to admit. Miriam studies her face. "About what?" she asks. Tirzah swallows. "That words can stop a nation." Miriam nods once. No triumph. No, "I told you so." Tirzah's eyes flicker toward the center of camp, where smoke still seems to cling in memory. "I didn't want death," she whispers. Miriam's voice stays gentle but firm. "Neither did I," she says, "and yet my jealousy opened the door for 100 other mouths." Tirzah looks down. "So what now?" Miriam takes a slow breath. The answer matters. Not for pride, for survival. "Now we walk," Miriam says. "And when you feel the urge to whisper, you do the harder thing. You speak to the person, in the light." Tirzah nods, not fully healed, but quieter. As Tirzah steps back, Miriam turns and looks over the camp. Thousands of people, fragile and stubborn, still chosen, still learning the hard way. Miriam touches her shawl, feeling the faint memory of marks on her skin. She thinks of her exile, the waiting, the way the camp stopped for her. She finally understands. Leadership isn't being heard. Leadership is knowing when not to speak. Miriam walks toward Moses and Aaron, not to claim a place, but to stand beside them, steady, quiet, present. The wilderness stretches ahead, and Miriam's last cliffhanger isn't thunder. It's a question that will haunt every tent from now on. When the next whisper rises, will anyone stop it before it becomes fire?